Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed the way a man looks at your chest, even when he's trying not to? You catch his eyes drop for half a second, then dart back up like nothing happened. And you're thinking, seriously, did he think I wouldn't notice? But here's the truth, men don't just look. They imagine, they daydream, they create a whole fantasy in their mind about your boobs. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, typical guys, always about the body, let me stop you right there, because the fantasy isn't always what you think it is. It's not just about size or cleavage or that low-cut dress you wear on date night. In fact, most of the time, it's not about the physical details at all. It's about what your boobs represent to him. And when you understand that, you suddenly unlock a huge secret about attraction and connection that most women completely overlook. See, men fantasize differently than women expect. What makes his head spin isn't only the look of your boobs, it's the feelings, the emotions, the little subconscious triggers that they create. Sometimes it's comfort, sometimes it's playfulness, and sometimes it's raw desire. And once you know how his mind really works, you stop worrying about whether you measure up and start realizing the incredible influence you already have. So today, I'm going to pull back the curtain and reveal 5 ways guys secretly fantasize about your boobs. Fantasies they'll never admit out loud, but that live rent free in their heads. And by the end, you won't just laugh at how predictable men can be. You'll also see how to turn this natural fascination into confidence, power, and yes, irresistible attraction. When most women think about a man's fascination with their boobs, they imagine it's just visual, a glance, a stare, a double take. And yes, men are wired visually. That's not a secret. But here's the surprising truth when he looks at your chest. It's not just his eyes reacting, it's his emotions firing up too. Your boobs are not simply a body part to him. They represent feelings, experiences, and even comfort that go way beyond the physical. That's why when a guy fantasizes, he's not just thinking about how you look, he's thinking about how you make him feel. Think about it like this. From the time we're babies, a man's earliest experiences of warmth, closeness, and safety often come from being held against a woman's chest. Without realizing it, those associations stick with him for life. So when he grows older, that part of your body doesn't just represent sex, it represents security, nurture, and being cared for. That's why so many men love to rest their head on a woman's chest, not just because it's sexy, but because it feels like home. It's the one place where strength and masculinity can pause, where he doesn't have to be on all the time, where he can simply relax. But here's where it gets interesting. This emotional association actually intensifies the sexual fantasy. Men crave that combination of comfort and desire. It's a cocktail that makes intimacy irresistible. When he's thinking about your boobs, it's not just a cheap thrill, it's a powerful mix of tenderness and passion. That's why the little things like the way you hug him tightly or press your body against his during a kiss can sometimes drive him absolutely wild. To him, it's not just physical touch, it's emotional touch. And that's a fantasy he can't turn off. Now, a lot of women underestimate this. They think men only fantasize about the way boobs look in lingerie or how they'd feel during intimacy. But in reality, his imagination is running in 2 directions at once. On one side, he's imagining the playful, sexy version of you, the way you tease, the way you flirt, the way you let him know you're confident in your body. On the other side, he's imagining the closeness, the tenderness, the simple act of lying with his arms around you and feeling safe. The fantasy is powerful because it connects those 2 worlds. He doesn't just want one or the other. He secretly wants both. This is why for many men, even non-sexual moments can feel incredibly intimate. When you curl up on the couch and lean into him, or when you hug him long enough for him to breathe you in, he's not just thinking, this feels nice. He's actually hardwiring an emotional attachment to you. And that's the kind of attachment that keeps him coming back, keeps him thinking about you when you're not there, and keeps him fantasizing long after you've left the room. Here's the beauty of understanding this. You don't need to compete with magazine covers or Instagram models, because his fantasy isn't about comparing measurements or perfect proportions. His fantasy is about the feeling you give him. That's what makes you unforgettable. Men may admire looks in passing, but what they fantasize about most, the thing that gets under their skin, is the emotional experience they connect to your body. And when you lean into that, when you embrace the idea that your presence is more powerful than any visual, you stop playing defense and start owning the game. So the next time you catch a man's eyes flicker down and back up, Don't just think of it as him checking you out. See it for what it really is, his mind tying together desire and comfort, passion and connection. To him, your boobs are not just something to look at, they're something to feel with his whole heart. And once you realize that, you'll understand why he's not just looking. He's secretly imagining what it feels like to be completely wrapped up in you. One of the biggest myths women believe is that men are obsessed with size. You hear it all the time. Bigger is better. Fuller is more attractive. Men only want one type. But here's the real secret that most women never get told: size isn't what actually drives a man crazy. What fascinates him, what he fantasizes about, and what makes his mind wander long after he's seen you is movement. It's the way your boobs naturally respond to you living your life. The bounce when you walk across the room, the sway when you laugh and lean forward, the way they shift under your clothes when you change position. Those tiny, unconscious movements have far more impact on him than static size ever could. Here's why. Men are captivated by things that feel alive, not frozen. A still image, no matter how perfect, can't compete with the hypnotic effect of motion. It's like fire. It dances, it flickers, it has a rhythm you can't look away from. And in his mind, your boobs are exactly that. They're a living, breathing part of you, and the way they move becomes a show that plays in his imagination on repeat. He doesn't need you to do anything intentional half the time. The moments that turn him on are the ones you don't even notice yourself. You might be adjusting your top, stretching your arms, or simply bending to grab something, and suddenly his brain is lit up with fantasies. This is why men fantasize less about a perfect shape and more about those fleeting little moments of movement that seem almost accidental. He'll remember how they shifted against him when you hugged him tight, or how they pressed into him when you leaned across to whisper in his ear. That memory is what he replays later on, not some abstract image of perfection. Movement personalizes the fantasy. It's not just boobs, it's your boobs, the way they respond to your body, your laughter, your energy. And here's the empowering part. This means attraction isn't about trying to fit into some impossible standard. It's not about padding, push-ups, or measuring up to models. It's about confidence in your body as it is. When you walk with comfort in your own skin, you naturally create the kind of movement that he can't ignore. Even the way you carry yourself in everyday clothes can be 10 times sexier than barring it all. Think about how men respond to a woman in a simple t-shirt or a fitted top. Why? Because the fabric moves with you. It hints, it teases, it makes his imagination work overtime. What he doesn't see, he fills in with fantasy, and that's always more powerful. This also explains why playful energy is so magnetic. When you laugh and your whole body moves freely, when you dance without self-consciousness, when you lean in and pull back with ease, you're creating those movements that burn into his memory. It's not staged, it's not forced, it's not something you plan, it's natural. And that natural movement is more irresistible than anything else because it makes him feel like he's catching a glimpse of something unscripted and real. So when a man fantasizes, it's not, wow, she's this size or she looks like that model. It's, I can't stop thinking about the way her chest moved when she smiled at me, or I keep replaying the way she brushed past me and I felt her against me. Those are the fantasies he can't shake, the ones that make him restless, the ones that hook his mind even when he's supposed to be focused on something else. The truth is, movement makes everything more personal. It ties your boobs to your personality, your energy, and your presence. And that's why in his private fantasies, it's not just boobs he's imagining. It's you in motion, alive, laughing, teasing real. That's what stays with him long after the moment has passed. And that's what makes the fantasy so powerful. When most people think about men and boobs, they imagine the fantasy as always sexual. The grabbing, the squeezing, the passionate moments in bed. And sure, that's part of it. But here's the fascinating truth. A huge part of his fantasy isn't sexual at all. In fact, many men fantasize about touching your chest in ways that are soft, tender, and deeply intimate. And those moments are often just as powerful, if not more so, than the purely physical ones. Think about the image of a man lying with his head on a woman's chest. He's not necessarily turned on in that moment. He's comforted. He feels close, safe, like he can finally let his guard down. To him, that simple act isn't just physical contact, it's emotional intimacy. It's the one place where he can rest and feel accepted without needing to perform, fix, or prove anything. And that feeling is so rare for most men that it becomes a fantasy in itself. He imagines the warmth of you holding him, the sound of your heartbeat in his ear. The way your arms wrap around him, it's not about lust, it's about being cared for. But here's the kicker. Those tender moments actually make the sexual fantasies more powerful. Why? Because they're connected. The same chest that comforts him also excites him. The same part of your body that he rests on in quiet intimacy is the one that makes his pulse race in moments of passion. That duality, the fact that you represent both softness and fire, makes you unforgettable in his mind. And here's what most women don't realize: men crave that duality. They want to be able to touch you playfully and sexually, but they also dream about simply being close. That's why when you let him hold you, when you let him lay his head against you, or even when you lean into him while watching a movie, you're feeding one of his deepest unspoken desires. You're giving him the connection that he doesn't always know how to ask for, but secretly longs for. This is why the fantasy isn't always about taking something. It's often about receiving something: your comfort, your warmth, your closeness. And that's powerful because it ties his physical attraction to you with emotional need. It makes him not only desire you, but also depend on you in a way that feels vulnerable. And men rarely show vulnerability easily, which is why when he fantasizes, your boobs aren't just an object of lust. They're a safe space, a symbol of intimacy he doesn't get anywhere else. So when you think of his fantasies, don't imagine it's just raw passion. Imagine the moments where he's holding you close, where he's touching you with gentleness, where he's feeling both turned on and at peace at the same time. Because that's the secret. His fantasies aren't just about the heat. They're about the comfort and closeness that come with it. And once you know that, you'll see that his desire for you goes far deeper than you think. Here's something women often underestimate: the clothes you wear don't just cover your body, they create his fantasy. Men don't only fantasize about what they see, they fantasize about what they think is underneath, what they're not yet allowed to touch or explore. That's why it's not always about the obvious plunging neckline or the push-up bra sometimes. What drives him crazy is the simplest outfit that leaves just enough to the imagination. Think about a fitted t-shirt that hugs your shape. To you, it's casual. To him, it's hypnotic. He notices the outline, the way the fabric stretches when you move, the hint of curve when you lean forward. It's the kind of image that gets stored in his brain and replayed later, not because it's overly revealing, but because it teases. The fantasy forms in the gap between what he sees and what he imagines. That's why less can often be more. Even something as simple as a blouse with one button undone can spark a whole scenario in his head. He imagines being the one to undo the next button, being the one to close the distance, being the one to discover what you've kept hidden. That moment of anticipation is intoxicating to him. And the truth is, anticipation is often sexier than full exposure. The mind fills in blanks with more detail, more excitement, more longing than reality ever could. This is why lingerie, while undeniably sexy, isn't the only trigger. Sometimes he finds a plain hoodie or tank top just as irresistible, because it frames you in a way that feels personal every day. Like he's seeing a side of you no one else does. That intimacy makes the fantasy stronger. He's not only picturing you dressed up for date night, he's fantasizing about you brushing your teeth in a tank top, about you curled up in a sweatshirt, about you in moments when you're not performing. Those natural images carry enormous weight in his imagination. And here's the big takeaway. You don't have to dress for the male gaze to make an impact. You can choose outfits that make you feel confident, playful, and authentic, and he'll still create fantasies around them, because it's not about what the clothes are, it's about how you wear them. When you walk into a room owning your look, whether it's a dress that highlights your curves or a casual tee that feels effortless, that confidence makes him notice every detail. So the next time you're standing in front of the mirror wondering if you look sexy enough, remember, sexy isn't about showing everything. Sexy is about suggestion. It's about leaving just enough space for his imagination to go wild, and the clothes you wear are the doorway to that. You don't need to reveal it all, because the fantasy is born in what he doesn't see. And believe me, he's filling in the blanks in ways that would surprise you. At the end of the day, here's the truth most women don't realize: the ultimate fantasy isn't about your size or your outfit or even the way you move. The ultimate fantasy is your confidence. A woman who owns her body, who isn't apologizing for it, hiding it, or second guessing it, is the one who leaves the deepest mark on a man's imagination. because confidence changes everything. It doesn't just make you attractive, it makes you unforgettable. Think about it. You've probably seen women with perfect figures who still come across as insecure, constantly adjusting their clothes or crossing their arms like they're trying to disappear. And then you've seen women who don't fit the so-called ideal, but who walk into a room with their shoulders back, smiling, laughing, completely at ease. Which one do you think captures more attention? It's not even a contest. Men aren't obsessing over measurements nearly as much as women believe. They're obsessing over presence. They're drawn to the energy of a woman who looks like she knows the power she holds and isn't afraid to use it. Confidence makes everything sexier. A simple gesture, a playful adjustment of your neckline, the way you lean in when you talk, the way you own your space suddenly becomes electric when it comes from a woman who's comfortable in her own skin. He's not just fantasizing about your body. He's fantasizing about you knowing exactly what effect you have on him, and that's intoxicating. That sense of she knows what she's doing and she knows I'm hooked creates a kind of tension men can't resist. What's more, confidence gives you control of the fantasy. Instead of being passive, instead of feeling like his gaze has power over you, you flip the script. You use it, you play with it. You meet his eyes when you notice him looking, and instead of shrinking, you smile. That tiny act says, I see you, and I know you can't help yourself. Now suddenly, you're not just the object of his fantasy, you're the director of it. That's the level of confidence that keeps a man up at night thinking about you. And here's the beautiful part. Confidence isn't about faking it or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about acceptance. It's about realizing your boobs don't have to look like anyone else's to be desirable. They're yours, and that uniqueness is exactly what makes them magnetic. The moment you stop comparing and start embracing is the moment you step into your full power. Because when you feel good in your body, he feels it too. Attraction is contagious. Men pick up on that energy instantly. They notice when you're proud of what you have. They notice when you're relaxed instead of tense, playful instead of self-conscious. And that energy transforms his fantasy. Now, he's not just thinking about your body in isolation. He's thinking about the experience of being with you. The laughter, the teasing, the confidence that tells him he's lucky to even be in your presence. That's what sticks with him. So yes, men fantasize about your boobs in 100 different ways, but the fantasy that towers over all the others is the one where you're confident, playful, and fully aware of your magnetism. Because deep down, men don't just want a woman who's beautiful. They want a woman who knows she's beautiful. That's the kind of fantasy that doesn't fade. And when you own that, you stop wondering what he's imagining because you already know. He's imagining you exactly as you are, confident, irresistible, and unforgettable. So let's bring this full circle. Men may glance, stare, or sneak a look when they think you're not watching, but what's really happening in his head goes so much deeper than you realize. It's not just about size or cleavage or what you're wearing that night. It's about the emotions your boobs stir up in him, the way your body moves naturally, the closeness he secretly craves, tease of what's hidden versus what's revealed, and above all, the confidence you carry when you own it all. And here's the part I want you to remember most. You don't need to change anything about yourself to be the fantasy. You already are. What makes him fantasize isn't perfection. It's the unique way you make him feel. It's the little moments you don't even think about. It's the laughter, the playfulness, the comfort, the way you let him in. That's the secret sauce that makes you unforgettable. So the next time you catch his eyes drop for a second, don't roll your eyes or get self-conscious. Instead, smile to yourself, because in that moment, you're not just his distraction. You're his fantasy. And once you learn to own that power, you stop being someone he just notices and you become the woman he can't stop thinking about. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever caught a guy giving you that look and wondered what was going through his head? Drop it in the